The first time Emma Chin walked through the steel gates of the Russo mansion, she could feel the weight of secrets pressing against the air. Rumors whispered that Adrien Russo ruled half of Chicago's underground world. What no one mentioned was that his 8-year-old son, Luca, hadn't spoken a word since the night his mother died. Most teachers never lasted a week. Luca refused to look at them, let alone communicate. But Emma had been different from the moment she entered his study, setting down her worn teaching bag and kneeling to his level. "Hi, Luca," she said softly. "I'm Emma." The boy didn't answer, just stared at the floor, shoulders tense. Emma smiled, then raised her hands. "Hello," she signed. Luca's head shot up. For the first time in years, someone had spoken his language. From that moment, something began to shift. Each afternoon, she taught him to sign new words: family, trust, safe. He still didn't speak, but he began to smile, to laugh silently, to draw pictures for her. The mansion staff started watching them with quiet astonishment. Even Adrien Russo himself sometimes paused at the study door, hidden in the shadows, watching the impossible unfold. One evening, as rain battered the windows, Emma heard raised voices down the hall. She shouldn't have listened, but when she recognized Adrien's voice, low and furious, she froze. "Vincent Torino touched my son's name again," he growled. "He's signing his death warrant." There was the slam of a glass, the scrape of a chair. "Keep Luca inside, and double the guards. If that teacher breathes a word." The door creaked, and Adrien stepped out. His sharp eyes caught Emma in the corridor. "How much did you hear?" Her heart pounded. Enough to know someone wants to hurt Luca. He walked toward her slowly, like a predator testing the air. "You shouldn't have been there." "I care about him," she said quietly. "If I'm putting him in danger, I'll leave." Adrien stopped inches away. The world seemed to hold its breath. "No," he said finally. "You stay. Anyone who tries to touch you or my son won't live long enough to regret it." That was the night Adrien Russo's protection became her prison. Days blurred into a fragile routine of lessons, laughter, and silent guards outside every window. Then one morning, as sunlight spilled across the dining room, Luca tapped Emma's sleeve and signed, "Can we go outside?" "Park. Ducks." Adrien lowered his newspaper. No, Luca's small hands trembled. "Please. He hasn't left these walls in months," Emma said softly. "He needs a breathe, Adrien. Just an hour." His jaw clenched. Power radiated from him, cold and immovable. But Luca's eyes, the same eyes as his late wife, broke through the steel. "Fine," Adrien said at last. "1 hour. Marco and 6 men go with you." At Lincoln Park, Luca ran toward the pond, flinging crumbs to ducks and giggling in silent delight. Emma couldn't help smiling. It was the first time she'd seen him look like a child instead of a shadow. "See," she said, "freedom isn't so scary." He signed happy. Then Emma noticed a man jogging past again. And again. Too many times. A maintenance worker lingered by a trash can, his head twitching toward them every few seconds. Her instinct screamed, "Marco." Gunfire shattered the afternoon. The jogger drew a pistol. The woman with a stroller pulled a rifle from beneath a blanket. The van across the street slid open, black-masked men spilling out. Marco shoved Emma aside as bullets tore through the air. Screams erupted. Emma turned. Luca stood frozen near the water, eyes wide with terror. She sprinted and tackled him just as shots ripped through the bench behind him. "I've got you," she gasped, covering his body with hers. "Don't move." The guards returned fire. 2 attackers fell, but more kept coming. Emma saw Marco take a bullet to the shoulder and keep shooting. Then another van screeched to a halt. "Grab the kid," a voice shouted. A round grazed Emma's ribs. She fell gasping, still clutching Luca. A man yanked the boy from her arms. "No!" she screamed, lunging. The butt of a rifle cracked against her temple, and everything went black. When she woke, hospital lights burned her eyes. Her side throbbed. Adrien sat beside her, blood on his cuffs, his expression unreadable. "They took him," she whispered. "I couldn't stop them." "You jumped in front of gunfire for my son," he said hoarsely. "You did more than anyone. But he's gone." Tears streamed down her cheeks. Because of me? Adrien stood, jaw tight with restrained fury. No, because Vincent Torino wants to hurt me. He thinks taking Luca will break me. He looked out the window, the city glowing beneath the night. He's wrong. That night, Chicago burned. 3 of Torino's warehouses exploded within an hour. Police scanners filled with chaos. The Russo war had begun. Luca woke in a warehouse, wrist bound, a gag across his mouth. He couldn't hear the shouting men, but he saw their rage. He signed in panic, Papa? Emma? But no one understood. Back at the mansion, Adrien prepared his retaliation, but Emma refused to rest. She ripped out her IVs, grabbed her coat, and slipped past the guards. She knew Luca. He'd told her about a family code, secret hand signs he and Adrien used in public if they were ever separated. The docks, she muttered to herself, hailing a taxi. He'd hide him where the noise covers everything. Warehouse by warehouse, she searched. On the 4th, she spotted movement, a small shadow behind a window pane, signing frantically. Her breath caught. Luca. She slipped inside through a side door, ducking behind crates. The air reeked of oil and rust. 3 armed guards stood near the child, laughing. Emma crouched low, her hands trembling as she raised them in the dim light. Little Wolf, I'm here, she signed across the gap. Luca's eyes widened. His fingers flew back. 3 men, 2 guns, 1 phone. Scarman coming back. Scarman, Vincent Torino. Emma's pulse quickened. She could already hear footsteps, slow, heavy, cruel, echoing to the corridor. And then the door opened. Vincent stepped inside, his scar catching the dim light, his grin twisting into something monstrous. Well, he sneered, dragging a chair across the floor. Looks like the mute's teacher came looking for extra credit. Emma's stomach turned, but she forced herself to stay calm. Luca's terrified eyes were on her. She signed quickly behind her back, small motions hidden from Vincent's view. Stay low. Wait for the signal. Vincent crouched to Luca's level. Tell your old man he's next. He grabbed a boy's chin roughly. Or can't you? Before Emma could move, a thunderous crash shook the walls. Tires screeched outside, engines roared and gunfire erupted. Vincent's head snapped up. What the... Emma seized her moment. She kicked over the table, slamming it into one guard, grabbed Luca, and dug behind crate. Bullets splintered wood above them. Stay down, she shouted. The side wall exploded inward. Adrien Russo stepped through smoke and fire, his men flooding in behind him. Where's my son? He roared. Vincent spun, firing wildly. Adrien didn't flinch. 2 precise shots, and Vincent dropped his gun, clutching his arm in agony. Emma held Luca tight as Adrien rushed forward. The boy broke free and ran straight into his father's arms. Papa. Adrien crushed him close, tears burning his eyes. I've got you, Piccolo. I've got you. But Vincent wasn't done. He reached for a fallen pistol and fired. Emma screamed. The gunshot thundered through the warehouse. Emma felt the world tilt. Her body jerked backward as pain ripped through her shoulder. Adrien spun toward the sound, eyes blazing. Emma! Luca screamed, not in sign, not in silence, but in sound, his first word in years. Papa! Adrien's heart shattered. He turned on Vincent, fury surging through every muscle. His bullet tore through Vincent's chest, slamming him against the wall. The once feared mob rival gasped, blood spilling over his shirt, eyes wide with disbelief. Adrien didn't look away. You touched my son, he said in a voice colder than death. That's the last mistake you'll ever make. Vincent collapsed. Adrien dropped his gun and ran to Emma, who lay trembling on the ground, her shirt soaked red. Luca clung to her hand, sobbing silently. I'm okay, she whispered, her lips pale. He's safe. That's all that matters. Adrien pressed his hand to her wound. Don't talk. Stay with me. He looked up at his men. Get the medics now. But Emma's eyes were unfocused, her breathing shallow. Promise me, she gasped. Promise you'll never let him feel alone again. I swear it, Adrien said fiercely. You're not dying, Emma. Not after everything. Luca signed frantically through his tears. "Don't leave me, please." Emma smiled weakly, tracing his cheek with her bloody fingers. "I'm not going anywhere, little wolf." Sirens wailed in the distance as Adrien carried her out of the burning warehouse, the night sky pulsing with red and blue. Weeks later, the Russo mansion was quieter now. Not cold, not haunted, but softer. Sunlight actually reached the hallways again. Emma sat on the terrace wrapped in a blanket, her shoulder bandaged. Her hair fluttered in the morning breeze as she watched Luca feeding bread to the pigeons. He turned and smiled at her, then signed, "You look better." She laughed. "Thanks, doctor." Adrien stepped onto the terrace, the sound of his polished shoes echoing softly. For once, he wasn't in a suit. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing scars that time hadn't erased. "You shouldn't be out in the cold," he said gently. "I needed air," she replied, "and Luca needed company." He looked at his son, laughing silently, radiant, then back at her. "He speaks now," Adrien said quietly. "He called me Papa yesterday." The therapist said the trauma's finally breaking. Emma's eyes softened. He just needed to feel safe. Adrien studied her for a long moment. "You did that. Not me. I had power, men, money, but you gave him something I couldn't." Emma shook her head. "No, he always had it in him. I just showed him it was okay to be heard." They stood in silence for a moment, the only sound a distant hum of city traffic. "Emma," Adrien said suddenly, his voice unsteady for the first time she'd ever heard. "When I thought you might die that night, I realized something." She blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "That I can face wars, enemies, even death, but not losing you." Her heart stilled. "I've lived in darkness for so long," he continued, stepping closer. "You brought light into my son's life, and mine." Emma's throat tightened. "Adrien, you don't owe me anything." He smiled faintly. "This isn't about owing. It's about truth." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "I know my world isn't safe, but I want to build something new," he said quietly. "For Luca. For you. With you." He opened the box, a simple silver ring glinting in the morning sun. Emma froze, tears filling her eyes. "Adrien." Luca ran over then, his hands moving fast. "Say yes. Say yes." Emma laughed through her tears, her heart overflowing. "I thought you didn't eavesdrop, little wolf." He grinned, signing again, "You make Papa smile." He never smiled before you. She looked at Adrien. This man who had once been pure steel and shadow, now softened, human, vulnerable. "I'm not sure I belong in your world," she said honestly. "Then I'll leave it behind," Adrien said simply. "For you both." The wind carried his words like a promise. Emma's tears spilled freely. "Yes," she whispered. Luca cheered, throwing his arms around both of them, his laughter echoing like sunlight breaking through years of silence. 6 months later, the mansion's iron gate stood open for the first time in decades. Inside, instead of guards, children ran across the courtyard. Emma and Adrien had turned one of his old warehouses into a private school for kids with communication challenges. Luca was the first student, and the first to graduate from silence to speech. Reporters called it the Russo Foundation for Hope. Emma called it family. One afternoon, she found Adrien sitting under the oak tree with Luca, teaching him to ride a bike. The sight made her heart melt. "Don't let go yet, Papa." Luca yelled. "I've got you," Adrien said, running behind him. "Always." Emma stood watching, a smile tugging at her lips. When Luca pedaled ahead and didn't fall, she applauded. "You did it." Adrien walked to her side, brushing sweat from his brow. "He's braver than I ever was." She leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. "He got that from his father." Adrien chuckled quietly. "You mean from you?" They stood there for a while, the sun sinking low, golden light wrapping them in warmth. "I still can't believe this," Emma murmured. "A year ago, I was just a teacher walking into a stranger's mansion." He turned to her, eyes full of the rare softness she'd grown to love. "And now you're the heart of it." Luca ran up, holding a small folded note. "I made something," he he said proudly. Emma unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "Thank you, Miss Emma, for giving me my voice." She smiled so wide it hurt. "You always had it, sweetheart. You just needed someone to listen." Adrien slipped an arm around her, and she made us both listen. The three of them stood there as the evening lights flickered on across the city, a city that once feared the Russo name, now whispering it with gratitude. 1 year later, the Russo Foundation's annual gala glittered beneath chandeliers. Journalists and donors mingled, but Emma stayed near the stage, watching Luca sign fluently with another child. Adrien approached his tux crisp, his expression softer than anyone remembered. "He's teaching other kids now," he said proudly. Emma nodded. "He's found his purpose." Adrien took her hand. "And I found mine." He raised her hand and kissed it gently, his voice low. "You didn't just teach my son sign language, Emma. You taught me how to speak without fear." She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "And you taught me that even broken people can build something beautiful." A hush fell over the hall as Luca climbed onto the small stage. The boy who had once lived in silence now faced a crowd with a microphone. His voice, soft but steady, filled the room. "My name is Luca Russo," he said. "I didn't speak for years. People thought I couldn't. But one teacher believed I could talk, even when I didn't believe it myself. She's my hero. And now, I want to help others find their voice, too." The audience rose in applause. Emma wept openly, hiding her face in Adrien's chest as the sound swelled around them. Adrien whispered in her ear, "He's everything I ever wanted him to be because of you." Emma smiled through her tears. "Because of us." As the applause faded, Luca ran to them, slipping his small hand into both of theirs. "Let's go home," he said. Adrien squeezed his hand. "Home," he echoed. Outside, under the soft glow of the streetlights, the three of them walked through the gates, not as teacher and student, not as a Mafia boss and his family, but as something purer, stronger, a family that had learned to speak again. And this time, they would never be silent. The Yandy Spark will subscribe for more stories like this, where love speaks louder than silence.